as most of you know, I'm up in Buffalo, kind of test driving it because I've gotten very tired of New York City for a lot of reasons. So, hey, man, Buffalo has first notch civic architecture. That's the council chamber. Beautiful, beautiful. Good as anything you would find in New York City, in my opinion. Beautiful houses, all these crazy Adams family, Victorian Queen Anne kind of houses. Very cool. Creepy cemetery tours. That's always a selling point for me. Wings, right? Mm. Concert halls, symphony, best dive bar in the country, Nietzsche's, great performance venue. It's a couple of our fans who came out to hang out with me there last week.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And this is the kind of thing people keep asking me, well, are you going to move there? Given the state of the country, I'm very hesitant to make any commitments to the country. But this is a good example of why I have no desire or interest in staying in New York, a city I once loved. As bad as it is nationally, in terms of the country's gotten more and more, I would say, fascistic in terms of imposing just crazy rules on the population to the point that it's abusive. New York is getting there way ahead of any place else I've been in this nation. And this nation is more that way than anywhere else I've been, period. You'd have to go pretty much to a totalitarian society to find a place as into beating up their citizens with crazy rules that they're constantly afraid they're going to get on the wrong side of as America. So I'm an avid cyclist. I do marathon rides, so this actually affects me a lot. NYPD's criminal crackdown on cyclists expands. So they just decided to change the rules to make it a criminal offense to be stopped for a moving violation on a bicycle. I didn't even know riding drunk on a bicycle was against the law. How are you supposed to get home from the bar? The NYPD's controversial new strategy of criminalizing low level traffic offenses by cyclists and e bike riders with court summonses has unleashed the worst instincts of individual cops, according to people who have received tickets, including one person who claims a cop clearly entrapped him. In just 1 week since the new policy started, cops have given out criminal summons to cyclists for wearing headphones and stopping just ahead of a painted stop line at intersections, even entirely ginning up offenses on the spot. The enforcement policy, which Mayor Adams and Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch claim is part of a strategy to target quality of life offenses, that was Giuliani really ushered that in New York, turns infractions like breaking red lights and riding the wrong way from a mere traffic ticket to a criminal court summons. The shift has already drawn scathing criticism from advocates, lawmakers, and legal experts who questioned whether the department could even single handedly increase a traffic ticket, which carries a fine that can be paid or contested online, into a mandatory criminal court appearance that carries the risk of a criminal record. Now, this is just abuse of the public. You're really going to put someone in a position where they could have a fucking criminal record for running a red light on a bicycle. This is what happens. I always think of the line in V for Vendetta. The people should not be afraid of their government. The government should be afraid of their people. When the government gets too confident that the people will not retaliate, I've seen it. New York is a great case study in this because New York used to be one of the freest places you could be during that kind of golden age that people always think of when they think of the New York art scene in the 70s and 80s. Now it is one of the most restricted, constricted places you could possibly go. And I personally saw it happen one step at a time. It's an ironic thing that you don't think about. Like, yes, you had a lot of crime in the 70s and 80s, that kept the cops too busy to bother you about shit like this. This is something you never think about. I'm not saying the solution is, well, bring back crime, but there is a problem with, and this is with what the libertarians are really focused on, and they're not wrong in terms of their theory that power will always expand its prerogatives, that the more power you give to government, the more the government will tend to expand its list of rules and its list of laws. It's like a shark. It has to constantly move. It'll never just settle at a point where, okay, it's good. We have enough power. The laws make sense. The nature of the institution of government is to seek more power and to create more rules. The longer it goes without challenge, the worse it gets. One cyclist said, so this is a crazy story. And if you've dealt with some cops, I'm not saying all New York cops are like this. I've had New York cops help me out of some situations, but some of them are. Some of them definitely are. I've also been slapped in the face by a cop in who then drove off. One cyclist said he was coming off the Williamsburg Bridge in Manhattan on Friday when a cop stationed at the Western Terminus stepped directly into the bike path, forcing him to swerve around and come to a stop. Quote, I lock eyes with him and he decides to walk right into the bike lane while staring at me, said the cyclist, who asked to remain anonymous. I slam on the brakes. I go around him, which means I have to go into the opposite lane. The rider shouted at the cop because the law enforcement official almost caused him to crash, and the officer accused him of being disorderly. The cop then charged him with disorderly conduct and failing to yield to a pedestrian, the pedestrian being the cop himself. When the cyclist protested that he was not being disorderly, the officer threatened to add on the arrestable offense of obstruction of governmental administration because he claimed he had been trying to stop another e-biker, and when the cyclist blocked him from doing so.
I think we know where that $10,000 donation to Shiloh came from. From this guy. It's anonymous. I think we have a lead.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, man, like if you're a New Yorker, you know this cop. You know this cop. We definitely have cops like this. I believe every word of this story. This is totally plausible. The cyclist said he did not see any e-biker. Rather, the cop instigated the entire interaction on purpose, he said. Quote, that's the most insane shit I've ever heard, he told Streets Blog. We locked eyes completely, and it was so deliberate. It couldn't have been more deliberate. It was so obvious that his intention was to make me have an interaction of some sort or to fuck with people. All right, so let me explain to you what's happening here. So when I used to drive a horse and carriage, every year, it was April. It was always April. For about 2 weeks, the cops would just write summonses to horse and carriages. Clearly, they were told to do that. It was always the same time of year. Now, I don't know if that's because that was a time at the end of a quarter that they're supposed to report to the mayor how many summonses they've written. They can't admit that because it's actually illegal. You can't give quotas. You have to, because obviously that incentivizes them to break the law in writing summons in order to meet the quota. But they do it. They do it. That's exactly what happened here. These guys, there are a bunch of other stories in this article that are just as insane. They got an order from on high to ticket bicyclists, so they're creating the pretext to give you a ticket, even if it's not within the legal definition of a crime, even within these new terms. There was another story of a woman who you're allowed to take a bike through a walk sign. Obviously not a car, but you can with a bike. She did that and they wrote her a ticket. And she showed them on the website, no, you can do this. The cops like, because they're meeting their quota. And also, you want to talk about a solution in search of a problem. In 2024, 37 pedestrians were injured in the entire year. In 179 reported e-bike collisions, the NYPD said. In that year, 9,610 pedestrians were injured overall. So e-bike riders caused just 0.4% of pedestrian injuries. That pattern has continued in the first 3 months of this year, with one pedestrian injured by an e-bike rider, according to the NYPD. Over the same period, 2,271 were injured overall. So e-bike riders caused less than 0.04% of the reported pedestrian injuries. So this is a hopeful for mayor here, Brad Lander, who's currently the comptroller, tweeted something out about this. This performative crackdown on largely law-abiding cyclists puts hard-working New Yorkers in harm's way while doing nothing to make our streets safer. Instead of unsustainable and overly punitive measures like this, we need real solutions like the Idaho stop. And I believe what that is to make the laws different for bicycles because they are not the same as cars, where you have to stop at a red light, but then you can go through it if there's no traffic. Strict regulations on delivery app companies that incentivize reckless riding, and restorative justice oriented interventions like the driver accountability program for e-bike and moped riders. Now, just to show you, I know a lot of people think New York is this deep blue city, and really not. You look at some of the responses. We have our chuds. Cry about it, bitch. This is why you will never be mayor. No one is cracking down on law-abiding cyclists, you polling at 6% pandering twit. You reek of desperation. The grift is almost over, Brad. So we have our share of fucking morons too in New York City of that particular flavor, which I know a lot of people don't realize. It's just another example of why New York City sucks for anybody with more personality than like a plastic straw at this point. Like the people who are happy there are trust fund babies who are never going to get bothered because they're trust fund babies and they stay inside the lines, and they're, the police aren't going to bother them because they don't know who their mommy and daddy might be. There's very unequal enforcement of the law. They really don't crack down on college kids in bar strips, but God forbid you're a working guy who brings his hand truck on the sidewalk. It's just it's actually New York City today is the most repressive place I've ever been. And I'm not saying there are not countries that would be more repressive that I haven't been to. Of course they have. I have not been any place that within the boundaries of a country that considers itself a liberal democracy that is so insanely determined to abuse the population with insane rules that you almost can't help but break. I've mentioned several times that I've been arrested a lot. Now, part of that is that I was a juvenile delinquent. As an adult, it's because I live in New York City, where as a young man, it's almost hard not to get arrested. Like I knew other people my age who got arrested who were not as deviant as myself. They're just constantly looking for a reason to arrest you. I've never been any place else that was quite like that.
Well, to write tickets and stuff. I mean, for
To
like
write tickets, yeah.
Oh yeah, for food delivery, you can't do food delivery in a car in New York.
Right,
Otherwise you will be ticketed out of any
right,
kind of
right.
profitability. There are delivery trucks who routinely get tickets. It's a very common sight in New York to be walking past one of these big 12-wheeler or even 18-wheeler trucks. The guys are loading out the truck in the back, taking stuff into
Right,
a
yeah.
bodega, and there's a cop at
Dude,
the front of the truck writing a ticket, and
right,
while they're working, it's just, hey,
right.
price of doing business. That's just a tax.
This is
Yeah,
why I haven't driven in so long that I'm like fucking Buck Rogers. I had to FaceTime this guy when I rented a car here to find out how to turn the fucking car on. Because I
right.
live in Manhattan. I've driven cross country 5 times. I stopped driving because they make it
Oh,
impossible
it's totally
for
impossible.
you to have a car. It's a fucking nightmare. So I didn't drive a car for 14 years. The technology completely changed.
Yeah. Yeah, and in terms of like the regulations in terms of bikes versus cars, I mean, obviously they're different. Obviously, I would not recommend getting on a bike drunk and riding. I could see that being a ticketable offense, like a civil offense, because if you get drunk and you ride out into the road and someone hits you, now they're going to be liable for crashing into you. So I could see that. I could see that, but you can't pretend they're the same risk to the public that somebody behind the wheel
Of
of a
course
car
not.
is. It's
A
crazy.
criminal offense?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it was already against all these things were already against the law.
Yeah.
They're just escalating it to a criminal offense. Why? What is the public interest in that?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was a $190 ticket. That's enough of a penalty for going through a fucking red light with a bike.
Yeah.
Why do you need more than that?
Yes. Yeah. A criminal offense to run a red light. I don't even see how that. I didn't even know it was a criminal offense in New York City to run a red light in a car. I mean, to me, that's always a civil offense. You run a red light, ticket, right? I mean, I didn't think that was a criminal record.
This is why, a lot of people are down on the son of Sam, but he kept them busy.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Make work for cops.
Please clap.